Good evening, and welcome to the November 18th regular session of the Speedway Redevelopment Commission. My name is Tom Popcheff. I'm the President of the Commission, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. I do want to make sure that everybody realizes that the appropriate notifications have been posted according to Indiana law, and what I'd also like to do is introduce everyone on the Commission and also our staff and consultant. Immediately to my right is Gordon Rundle, Commission member. To my immediate left is Brody Duncan, who is a Vice President. To his left is Rhonda Schwartz, the Secretary. To her left is Jennifer Miller, Commission member. And on the far left is Dr. Terry Reed, who represents the Speedway School Corporation. On my very far right is Mr. Tim Gropp, who is our Director of Economic Development for the town of Speedway. In our audience, we have Tim Ramian, our Executive Assistant, and also David Rainey, who is our consultant with the Veritas Group on a couple of our projects. And you'll be hearing from David a little bit later on one of those projects. So I have confirmed that we've got a quorum, and the next agenda item is to open up the lectern to any public comments. Anyone in the audience would like to make any comments at this stage? Yes, sir. Please, Alex, come to the lectern.
Hi, Alex Weissmuller, 6209 Ward Drive, Unit F. Just want to make a comment and just say thank you guys for the work that you do. You guys are just awesome individuals. I see you out in the community, and you guys love Speedway, and it's apparent. And just want to thank you guys for always being so communicative and getting information out there, and also just being patient with everybody. So just thank you guys. You guys are awesome.
Alex, thank you very much for your comment, and I know we all appreciate that. We also appreciate the time and energies that you provide in your volunteer roles to the town of Speedway as well. So thank you. And I'd love to have you come back at every meeting and relay that same message. Okay. Any further comments? Well, hearing none, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent of the meeting minutes for our executive session, as well as our regular session that was held on October 21st, 2019, and then a special session that was held on November 6th, 2019. Those minutes had previously been distributed, so every one of the commission members had an opportunity to review those and comment. And again, thank you, Tim, for your very fine job of putting those minutes together. Did anybody have any further comments, suggested edits on those minutes? Great. So hearing none, we will accept those by consent. Next agenda item is our approval of claims and expenses. Again, had been distributed by our clerk treasurer, Monty Combs, in advance of our meeting. The one exceptionally large claim is something that we had discussed at our previous meeting, the special meeting, and that was the expense for the utility work with IPL at the 2500 North High School project. Tim, did you have any other comments to make regarding expenses for this month?
Just a few to point out. So there's 2 surety bonds on here for myself and I believe Tim Ramian. We will renew everybody's once if keep you guys on your toes, get reappointed to the SRC. So we'll keep the bonds, the liability bonds on everybody once everybody gets reappointed whenever the council does so. We went ahead and paid ours to make sure we're still covered, so you guys are out of luck. Beyond that, the ones that haven't come up, the Fifth Third Bank, I actually had to call on those. Those are credit card charges. I thought they were associated with a bond account or something, but and if you see, they're out of 2 different accounts. One of them is repairs and maintenance. That's mostly office supplies and maintenance issues, toilet paper, paper towels, stuff like that for the office, and the other one dealt with some advertising that we did that we just put on the card for public notices and whatnot. So just wanted to clarify what those were. The Home Improvements LLC that moved the sign pole, that was on our lot adjacent to USAC. We had moved the pole and put additional signage up. We had to have somebody do that. We're just struggling to have people who are squatting in there during the day, so we're trying to make some adjustments to make it clear that during the day that's restricted parking, and then evenings and weekends are not. And then there was a question about the Main Street events admission tickets. That's actually, we hosted a tour showcasing Speedway during the International Economic Development Council, and there were about 50 or so members that came in to see our community and showcase everything. And part of the tour that we set up was a tour of Dallara IndyCar Factory, and that was our donation to that tour, was paying for that admittance for them to get in and tour the facility. So it's an oddball. You won't see that one
Sure.
on there very often.
Well, I'm sure the tour was well-received, and
It was.
everybody
very,
enjoyed having an opportunity to see our redeveloped Main Street.
very good.
Good, good. Anything else, Tim?
Everything else is pretty much standard.
Okay.
Overall claims were lower. You mentioned the IPL relocation number that will get reimbursed out of the 2500 project, and that was taken out of TIF, not operating.
Right. Anybody have any further questions or clarifications on the expenses? Well, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the claims, the Register of Claims.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we accept the Register of Claims.
Okay, I have an initial motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Great, thank you very much. Any further questions, comments? Well, let's take it to a vote. All those in favor of accepting the Register of Claims as distributed, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tim, for your report. The next agenda item relates to our project updates, and I would like to make some comments on our Wilshaw Hotel project. I'm very pleased to let everyone know that town representatives had the opportunity to meet with the developers last Thursday concerning the current status of the hotel project. I mean, although there are still some project-related items to be finalized prior to resuming construction, the project is still within the completion timeframes as outlined in the Economic Development Agreement. All parties remain dedicated to completing this important project in a timely manner as much as possible. So that's all that I can relay at this time, and what I'd like to do is move on to the Founders Square project update, and I believe Mr. Rainey, you're going to give us, or Tim and David?
Yeah, I'll kind of kick it off, and Mr. Rainey can help fill in some of the gaps. So
Okay.
everything's teed up. Our original hope was that we would do any final approvals on the documents. We approved those at our last October meeting. We've made some changes since then because other, such as the IPL has been taken care of now. So we keep amending the document as this thing keeps dragging on. The entire holdup for moving forward is Circle K. We pushed on them last week. Unfortunately, I don't know what was happening in Circle K's corporate offices, but everybody was out of the office, and in particular, the person that we really needed that's been negotiating on their side was in the hospital. So we lost an entire week there. I hope, hopefully they'll come back this week. I'm not sure why they were in the hospital, but they were.
That's serious.
Yes, absolutely. So we've reached back out, trying to renegotiate. We've offered to meet this week, and hopefully we can get that tied up. So our initial hope was that we would sign off on all the documents, close on the bond Thursday, start the sale process of the bond Thursday, and then close by December 10th. So that's obviously not going to happen now. So got on a call with our financial team. Our new goal is to sale of bonds December 4th, close on the 19th or 20th before Christmas. The week after that, we're really up against deadline now where we'd have to probably consider going into January. The week after December 4th is getting to be quite a few bonds on the market scheduled. So the 4th is still lighter. We're going to be white noise the week after, and then you hit into the Christmas season, and frankly, at that point, you might as well just delay it into January. So we're kind of up to we've pushed it back as far as we can push it back, but we really need to get this thing done. Beyond that, That's our new timeline on the bond. We will have to call S&P again because our rating ends the end of November. But talking to our consultants, that doesn't seem to be a big issue. It should be a half-hour call. We've had no major changes in our financial situation in the town or SRC, so it should be a really quick update meeting.
And you don't anticipate any change in that initial rating?
No, we do not. We don't think that's going to be a big issue. We were worried about that, but we really can't push back anymore. So with that said, we've prepared in your packet, there's a budget from Veritas Group. And so we'll walk you through that here. I'll do a brief overview. But the good news is that everything's coming in under, per the EDA, we were committed to up to $5 million of infrastructure and site work. It looks like we're going to come in under that by about, I got to look at my notes, by about $100,000, give or take, because there's still some moving targets with the AT&T land and whatnot. So not too bad for a project. The bids came in well, and I appreciate David's work on that. Overall, we end up with a little more cash, and we won't know that exact number. You'll see numbers on here, but because of the way the bond's structured and sold, we end up with some additional cash in there. So either way, we end up under budget with some with a little bit of fluff, which is always good in a project because that usually doesn't happen. Usually you're against the budget trying to figure out how you're going to get paid. So with that, David, do you want to kind of walk them through the budget, or do you want me to do it?
I guess, if you're welcome to, if you want. I had a couple comments with regard to the
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
I'll just do a quick overview and you can come in. So the sale proceeds, as we mentioned, we really have two pots of money. There were sale proceeds and there's bond funds. The bond funds are dedicated specifically to the work that was sent out for bids. And that's the way we structured the bond. So on the very bottom is the bond fund, the $2.7 million, the phase one bid, the intersection, and then a small contingency left over. So that money is dedicated to draws based on the site work and the initial infrastructure. The property sale proceeds, the $3 million proceeds, we went ahead and just because, again, timeline has dragged on, we've done some of this. We've shifted some of the responsibility over to the developer. So the first one is credits against that. So we had one of the projects, we wanted to give them land for that, so we had a credit on that against it. We had to purchase some additional land from AT&T, so we're doing a credit against that. We won't get involved in that. We'll actually have the developer at that time close with AT&T. And then the road extension and the swaps with El Rodeo, as we discussed, those are the responsibility of the developer. We've put in our contribution here as credits to the overall purchase price. So all that's doing is taking that $3 million and bringing it down. If they don't go forward with any of those, we would get paid back that sum. But they're still based on talk with tenants and where everybody's going. They don't know what they need and don't need at this point. So we put that in their court and said, here's what we were going to pay for that. Do it if you need to. If you don't, you owe us that money back. So that top part is all those credits. The second one is per the EDA. We had allocated up to $500,000 for reimbursable expenses to get the project moving early on. So design costs, environmental reports, site survey, closing. They're working on title work right now. So we have it in there as the full 500, and we fully anticipate it will be. Right now, I think your number's a little shy of that.
Lower than that, yes.
But I've never met a developer that left money on the table, so. So we anticipate that to be at the 5, so we just budgeted for it and figured that if it's a little bit less, that's bonus, but I don't anticipate it would be once we get all the final numbers in. And then the bottom part is the part that's really our responsibility, so that's a lot of the infrastructure relocation. So that was the $221,000 for IPL. There's some AT&T relocation. There's a fiber line that needs relocated. and their possible abandonment of a gas line. We're not 100% sure. Most of that has, frankly, already been paid. The AT&T was prepaid. Actually, sorry, we already moved that one up to the credits because that was already prepaid by the developer. So our thought was we don't really need the reserve fund anymore because most of this is already allocated out. So in the funding agreement, we've eliminated the reserve fund and it basically just becomes a sale at closing. So the sale money that we get will go directly back in to reimburse us for what we've already spent. So there's only one line item in there, landscaping, and that is something we put in to kind of meet the needs. We don't know what they've just engaged, the developers just engaged their landscape architect. We don't know what the final signs, what the fountain, what the amenities, what the entranceway signs are going to look like. Since we're a little under budget, I felt we wanted to put a little money in there if we want them to be a little nicer, if we wanted to add something, if we wanted to add lights to the fountain, things that we think will make this development nicer than how it should be as our entrance. We have a little bit of fluff to do that and say, look, what you did is fine, but we want it to be kind of the next level. That's uncommitted money per the EDA. That's money that I set aside in case we decide we want it to be a little nicer and you also choose that that's a good expense to be used. So with that said, I'll turn it over to David.
Yeah, the only thing I really wanted to add was that currently I continue to work with Atlas as far as getting them engaged. Really the next phase for them is to identify the final contract price that we can get those contracts starting to move with rebar development. We have identified already some potential cost savings with the project. They had in their bid haul off of some soils. And given the size of the site, we believe it's very possible that we'll be able to keep all the soils on site. So we're working through that to determine what that cost would be. While the contingency is 6%, it's not the highest contingency. Unfortunately, I say fortunately, there's not a whole lot of opportunity for hidden unknowns. That really falls within unsuitable soils when they start to do the pond work. But if there's an opportunity there, but that possibly could go off to the environmental group to have that paid for. And then with regard to the road, again, if there's any unsuitable soils there, that's really our risk at that point. So pretty confident that we'll be able to get through that without any issue. I'm sure we'll find something, hopefully not a Volkswagen or structures of some kind. You never know what you're going to find when you start digging, but that's really it there. Things are going well. I think again, I mentioned this last time, the relocation of those power lines are really the important thing. So kind of some of this delay that we're talking about may actually work to an advantage here, but nonetheless, I know that Atlas gave us a bid with the intention of proceeding at a schedule. So I want to try to keep everything moving as we can, as efficiently as we can, to get them out there and mobilized. So.
We did hear back from Indianapolis, so the 25th and high school approval is actually on the city-county council agenda for this evening. I'm not sure why it got delayed, but it is, so we're excited about that. They did also reassure us that they will be restriping Crawfordsville westbound as promised. However, they didn't want to tear off the old striping, and for them to put the new striping on, it has to be a consistent, I think, 51 degrees or something like that. And so they were afraid that isn't going to happen. So it's probably going to be the spring now. Sure. They originally had told us it was going to be the fall, but it's still on the radar. We did confirm that. It just, weather doesn't seem to be like it's going to cooperate for that to happen this fall.
They were still hopeful IPL will begin their work sometime in December.
So they've been paid, they're in engineering right now, so I'll continue to follow up with them. They say it's anywhere from, typically it's 6 to 8 weeks. They're saying because of their backlog of work, especially on the west side, that it's potentially 8 to 10 weeks. So I'll continue to follow up with them, and important thing is they've been paid, so they don't start work until they've been paid.
They've got our money.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good. Anybody have any questions, either Tim or David, regarding the budget or any other aspect of 2,500?
The second page you have in your packet just kind of looks at the project different ways to make sure all the numbers made sense. I won't go into all of it, but, actual proceeds compared against the EDA budget, purchase money, bond proceeds and where that's going, purchase cash flow, because there is a deferred amount, the Circle K amount, the million.
Correct.
Won't get paid up front, depending on what Circle K does in that deal with the developer. So once that all gets hashed out, that'll come back to us.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you, Tim, and thank you, David.
Yep.
Certainly appreciate that update. All right, we'll move on to the next project update, and that's our 1300 North Main Street block development. So, Tim, do you have any new updates there?
Just a short update that the developer who owns the Autotech property has, and the parcel behind where the little strip is, where all the bricks are, has moved forward with the demo contract. And so they will be cleaning up the bricks and demoing Autotech. Bell is still obviously in their building at this time, still deciding which way they're going to go. But it's my understanding that it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks, Brody? Is that accurate?
Yeah, for the utility disconnects to take place.
Yeah. So,
And it would be after the first of the year would be my anticipation.
I assume that's just going to be crushed gravel after the building's removed.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I think that scope took out most of the asphalt too, right?
I believe so, yeah.
So it'll be cleaned up and the next step in that process, and we're still waiting for that draft agreement to come. Obviously, with all the, the ramifications of Roger Penske's purchase and the excitement around that has increased some of the interest in that facility as well, which is a good thing. We're just trying to get all the pieces to line up and then figure out how to make it work. So hopefully that all happens here shortly after that, but the process is in place now to move forward.
Well, I know we've restriped those asphalt areas once the contamination remediation was done.
Yep.
But I still notice there's not a lot of vehicles that utilize that lot. And I know it was originally intended for the employees along Main Street, but I know they're finding alternate locations to park closer to their places of employment. I don't know that it's really created a significant issue, possibly for some of the residents, but certainly not the retail owners and operators. So, certainly hope that we could encourage, some people to utilize that lot a little bit more effectively.
Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting, you mentioned the IMS sale to Roger Penske, and the next project item is somewhat related to that, a new emphasis on attempting to get these agreements done. Would you give us a little update on the land swap with IMS?
Yeah, we just haven't talked a lot about it, but, the SRC owns several properties, some along Georgetown Road, some along 16th Street, kind of just parcels here or there that we acquired before any of us were on the SRC, and for various reasons. Some of them were purchased, as part of the Wilshaw Project. Some of them were purchased just to clean up a site, kind of like 4501 West 16th Street was this year. So we have parcels that don't necessarily do a lot for us, and IMS obviously has some strategic parcels that could benefit us more, and they'd like some of our parcels. So we've been working with them to try to come up with a deal to swap our land that benefits both sides, that makes more sense for them in their long-term plans, but also meets the needs of what the SRC is trying to do. We have some commitments for parking on Wilshaw that we have to accommodate. So we're just working through that deal. We're hoping to have an agreement in place sooner than later for the SRC to look at. Just wanted everyone to be aware that we had these talks on and off again for quite some time, but it has really ramped up in interest in with the change over here. So we anticipate this coming forward sooner than later compared to the conversations we had prior. So just wanted everyone to be aware. We're still working out details, and we'll bring those forward as soon as we have them.
Anybody have any questions of Tim on any of the related project updates? I do want to comment, the contaminated mound of Prax Air, that cleanup project is moving along quite nicely. I mean, they're sculpting.
Looks a lot different.
Yeah, having sculpted that very nicely. Do you have any idea when they intend to come in and encapsulate contaminated areas?
So it looks like they're about done with phase one, which is what you mentioned, the sculpting of the current land. They'll come in next on phase two and cap it, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but there's about 18 inches of two different types of soil that'll go over that now. And then they'll stabilize it for the winter, and then we'll put the fencing up around it after that, and
Right.
they'll have to come back in the spring to plant the grasses or whatever they've decided for the final cover for that, but it's coming along nicely. It looks a lot different.
Certainly is. I mean, every time I go by there, I see some significant progress.
They pulled a lot of stuff out of that pile.
I could
So a
imagine.
mound of tires. That was-
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there was a
Tires.
large amount of tires, all sizes as well. So if you needed any retread tires, I mean, that might have been a good place
Contaminated
to
tires.
shop.
I wouldn't use those tires.
No. Well, I noticed on our agenda, we have no new business. There is no old business on our agenda unless, Jennifer, do you have something you'd
I
like?
was just wondering if the recent weather has had any impact on Gilman's schedule?
Probably. Sorry, I don't have a really good update. I know they were moving. They slowed down when the roof components came in a little bit here, so I'm not sure what that delay is. But I haven't heard of any concerns from John Merritt, our building commissioner, of any issues at the site. But I will follow up and see what I can find out for you.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks, Tim. Well, let's move on to the next and last agenda item, which is our director's report. And I think you promised us a rather lengthy and informative report this evening, didn't you?
Nothing for me this evening.
Great, thank you, Tim. Does anybody else on the commission have any announcements? Anything you'd like to share with our stakeholders or any of the other commission members?
Light the Night
Yes,
is,
there's-
Light the Night takes place on December 4th at Delara.
Good.
Yes. So that's
Anything
one of the
else?
fun events, yeah.
Yeah, oh, it's always a fun
Yes.
event, yeah. And, I mean, weather depending, I recall taking my granddaughter down there and having to carry her for quite a few
Yeah.
blocks in, sub-freezing temperatures.
Sure.
But I had fun. I'm not necessarily
be
sure
there.
she did.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, the only thing I'd like to do is, encourage everyone to support, our Speedway businesses, particularly with the holiday season coming up, and just be safe out there, particularly with the colder weather. And I want to thank everyone for attending this evening's meeting. So we will go ahead and adjourn. Meeting adjourned.